Welcome back. My name is Shawn Tierney from Insights in Automation, and I want to thank you for tuning back into this episode of the Automation Podcast. This week on the show, I have Ashley Weckwerth from ISA to talk about the OT Cybersecurity Summit they just held over in Europe, in Brussels. And a very interesting conversation about OT cybersecurity. In addition to that, I had a couple announcements. First off, I wanted to let you know that I have rebooted the Automation News podcast, and I renamed it Automation Tech Talk, and I'm trying to do a show at least 3 or 4 times a week at lunchtime. So if you're not already subscribed to the old Automation News podcast, you should be able to find it now as Automation Tech Talk. And I'm just trying to spend 10 to 20 minutes every lunch trying to share some knowledge that I have with the community. I also want to mention that if you are a listener, I'm running a special 20% off sale on my courses over at theautomationschool.com. You will not see that there. It's only for those listening. And I know most of you are already automation experts, so you don't need to take these courses. So really, this would be something you would pass on to the people who work for you or people you know who need to get up to speed on whether they need an introductory PLC course, or they need to get up to speed on control logics, compact logics, S7, 1200, and 1500, Panel V Plus, USC, and so on. So in any case, to get that discount, that 20% off any course or a bundle of courses at $99 or more, all you have to do is send me the email address of the person who wants the discount. And of course, we do group enrollment with, we've done it with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. Actually, I got a new order that just came in, I got to process. But when we do a group enrollment, you enroll like several people at your shop, and then I enroll them all at once, and you get a discount, a quantity discount, and all that. So in any case, if you have any questions about that, just go to theautomationschool.com. All my contact info is at the very top, my voicemail, my email. You can even fill in a form there or book a meeting with me. But please let me know if you know anybody who needs training, even if you just want me to reach out to them to see if I can help them with their training needs. Please let me know over there. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode of the Automation Podcast. And Ashley, I know this is your first time on the show. So before we jump into the summary of what this OT Cybersecurity Summit is and what it was all about and the highlights and all that good stuff, before we even get into that, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Shawn. I appreciate being here. My name is Ashley Weckwerth. I am located in Orlando, Florida. I've been a volunteer for ISA for 12 years now. I actually have a day job, though. I'm a volunteer with ISA, which is the International Society of Automation. But in my day job, I'm actually a project manager for automation projects. So specifically SCADA systems projects for the electric grid right now. But our company also supports many other industries. So I actually started my career out. I was a chemical engineer. So I like to tell people you never know how you're going to find your way to automation professions. There's so many different varying degrees and everything that kind of lead us to this place. But I graduated in chemical engineering, went into instrumentation and controls for the oil and gas industry. So doing a lot of, it was PLCs or DCS systems that we used. But essentially, as I actually got my professional engineer license in control systems. So as a chemical engineer, you don't know a lot about instrumentation controls and automation. At least I didn't. And so I was actually recommended to join ISA right out of school. So I joined ISA in June of 2012 and became a volunteer leader at the local section in 2013, and then just grew in my volunteer roles. And I am now the ISA President-elect Secretary. So what that means is in 2026, I will be the ISA president for that calendar year. So I'm excited to be here today to talk to you all about the ISA OT Cyber Summit. I actually was able to attend this event this year. It's the 3rd year that ISA has done this event. The first year was Aberdeen, Scotland. The second year was in London. And then this year, the first year I was able to attend was actually in Brussels, Belgium. So we've been all over Europe in different capacities. And I was really excited to attend this event, and I wanted to come on here today. And I'm so thankful you allowed us to come on here today to just tell your audience and community that are all very enthusiastic about automation about this summit. So hopefully maybe they want to attend in the future, or maybe just can see what ISA is all about and look into it more. So I'm really excited.
No, and thank you for coming on. It's we all get so wrapped up in our day to day that it's great to have people on, like from ISA, to tell us what's going on. And maybe you get in a position later in your career where you can actually spend some time after work, meeting with your colleagues from all kinds of different industries. ISA is a great place to check into and get involved with. But let me go ahead and turn it back to you.
Yeah, no, and Shawn, you're so right in the sense of I tell people is even though right now I'm not really in the day-to-day cybersecurity or OT cyber space, this conference was actually still really beneficial because of all the diverse connections that I gained there. It was actually the first time I had been more of the minority coming from the United States in the sense that you had people from Spain, you had people from Belgium, of course. You had France, you had Ireland, you had London and UK, right? You had different perspectives that everybody's trying to come together. And ISA has this vision statement that's create a better world through automation. Is that's truly what this group's trying to do is we're trying to protect all of our automation systems in the OT space against those vulnerabilities or those threats and how it will impact us from an operational standpoint, but also a business standpoint. So I thought, even though I'm not in it day to day, like you mentioned, is sometimes I just have my blinders on, do my job, know what I'm doing, is it was very unique to talk to these folks at the socials and in the meetings and listen to them to really expand my knowledge of what automation can be and also what we can do to protect it, but also just like building those connections because you never know where your career might lead. And I really did value that. So with that, I did want to mention that ISA OT Cyber Summit did have 2 unique tracks this year. I do feel like we try to change up the tracks based on what's happening in today's world, what people are talking about, the trends in this area. And so this year we had a track called threat intelligence. So really just identifying threats, knowing the vulnerabilities, knowing how to respond and react to those, how to prepare for those threats. So that was one track that we had. And the other track was securing the supply chain.
Hey, everybody, just wanted to jump in there for a minute and pay the bills and talk to you about some of the changes coming to the courses at theautomationschool.com. If you're watching this video, then you will see me standing in front of a bunch of equipment, and that's because I am actively updating all of my PLC courses, as well as filming new editions. So I just want to make it very clear, if you buy the existing course today, you will get the updated edition as well. And there are some add-on courses I'm doing that will be optional. You can buy them or not buy them. But in any case, I just wanted to let everybody know that I want to protect your investment. I know I've been doing this for 12 plus years, on my own as the Automation School and the Automation Blog. And 25 years before I was, working as a specialist. But I just wanted to let you know that, if you make an investment today, you're not going to miss out on what I previously did, but you're also going to get what I continue to do. And that's very important to me. And all my courses are buy once, own forever. So if you make the investment, let's say going back to 2013, 2014, you're still going to get the updated courses. So I know a lot of people get confused when you start looking at the new versions of Studio 5000. It looks different, than even version 30, right? And so, I figured it was, a lot of people too moved to a Windows 11. And there's some new cool stuff I want to include. Over the time I've looked for different hardware sales and, I've bought a lot of different equipment, just out of my own pocket that I want to show you guys as well. So with that said, that's an update on the Automation School. Now let's get right back into this week's podcast.
So making sure that when we have disruptions to those supply chain areas or what those disruptions might look like, how are we going to adapt to those? What does that mean to do to make sure that we're being dependable and reliable in what we're trying to accomplish in the supply chain and making sure we understand those impacts as well. So 2 different tracks. Of course, we had speakers that sometimes overlapped both because they do kind of intertwine together. We had 40 speakers, 230 attendees and over 20 sponsors this year. So the event just continues to grow and grow. But the real thing that I loved about the conference and the content was it actually shocked me how transparent and open the conversation was, because I feel like at some conferences you go and you feel like you're just sitting and being like preached at. And you're like, I don't know if I agree with that. At this conference, I felt like was different. It had more panel discussions. And one that really stood out to me is it was a panel discussion about IT OT convergence. And now this has been a theme word for years now, right? IT OT convergence, that's the way to go. It actually took a shift in the discussion, in the panel discussion, where people were actually like, why? Why are we trying to do that? It seems like IT just wants to do that, and OT is being told you must do that. And so I thought it was, and you would think that we were about to go like in a boxing ring, but we weren't, right? It was actually like people wanted to hear and be inclusive of counter arguments, which again, I think was very unique for this kind of conference, in the sense of, you might think that we were trying to push OT, IT convergent, but it was no, like, let's discuss the pain points and the challenges and where what's holding us back from converging. What are the benefits of that convergence? And I thought what was unique is we had IT backgrounded people on the panel as well as OT backgrounded people. So you kind of see both sides, where they actually had people raise their hand what their background was in. And it was kind of unique to see the audience members being like, yeah, I came from the IT background and I'm being told I need to watch over this IT space, or the IT people raising their hand, or OT people, OT people saying, yeah, I came from the OT side and I want the IT side to watch what they're asking and be careful and stuff like that. And so I again want to go back to, it was very cool to see the diverse connections in this group, but also the inclusiveness, that we weren't trying to push ideas. We were trying to get people talking about the options and what's available and why. And so I thought it was interesting that I feel like I've always heard like we want to push towards convergence, with, just having better data, knowing what's happening through the whole system and from a cyber aspect. But I thought it was unique to hear how we could work together and keep them still separate in some certain situations, and why. And so that was unique to me. I thought, I was like, wow, it took a turn, but in a positive way. And I think we all left there really challenged with, where do we want this to head? Why? And how do we get rid of those pain points? So
Yeah, I think a lot of controls engineers, right? They
Mhm.
they know their IT guys. So let's say you're an end user, and they know the cost of downtime.
Mhm.
And in many cases there's no convergence because there's no tolerance for downtime.
Right.
If you're making computer chips, or you're making, well, I guess even potato chips, you really, downtime is such a profit killer, right?
Yeah.
And in some cases it can take years to recover from a day or a week of downtime. And so that mission critical aspect of what we do in industrial automation is not always, that mentality is
Right.
not always present in IT. In many companies, and I'm not saying all IT people, but in many companies, IT is a firefighter. They're a tech who's been thrown to the wolves, and they're fixing everything from smartphones to, trying to get the UPS replaced, to, somebody needs a better monitor, to the CEO maybe needs a little hand holding to get the PowerPoint to work. So yeah, different worlds, and it's so unique. And I'm sure you see this in your business, but every site, every customer seems to be unique. Well, because they have unique people, right? But every site you go to is even different sites in the same company. They have
Oh,
different cultures, and just, I guess, they all have unique people, unique teams. So that's going to happen. But yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. That sounds like it was a very interesting discussion.
right. And you bring up a great point in the sense of, I remember specifically this CISO or CISO Chief Information Security Officer from Johns Manville came in
Mhm.
and was talking about how he came from an IT background and was told, you're kind of leading this. And he noticed that he had the gap from the OT lens and that downtime, like you were talking about, or the individual plant, to where he did a strategic hire, essentially, or move to bring in an OT lens into his umbrella, essentially, to make sure he wasn't like missing something or speaking and not realizing that impact of downturn. And that's actually Scott Reynolds, who talked here, I believe, last year about this summit. That's who he brought under him to bring in that OT thought process. And they actually do travel to their different locations. Like you said, every plant's different, every manufacturing facility is different, to make sure they're hearing the unique circumstances and what they can do to support, but also not just like pushing them to do it a certain way, knowing that there are the variances. So I think that you're exactly right. So perfect. So the other side, right, is that's really trending right now, and especially in Europe, which I learned, fun fact, I was like, why is this conference in Belgium and in Brussels? And I did not realize that Brussels is like the de facto capital of the EU, the European Union. And so there's a lot of regulation that is happening in Brussels and things that like come down from a compliance standpoint. And so a lot of the other, discussions that happened was regarding the regulatory landscape across all the world, essentially. And like NIS2, which I had to write this down because I am not as familiar with NIS2, is Network and Information Security Directive. There's been NIS1 for a while, or just NIS. And now they've come up with an update that actually spans across multiple sectors. And we can see from NIS2 and from RED, which is Radio Equipment Directive, and just other cyber initiatives and regulation coming down, cybersecurity initiatives, that more and more government or state officials are seeing the vulnerabilities that could happen, or the risk that could happen if they don't say, you shall follow this or do something to protect your OT systems from disruption, from downtime, all of that, especially those, again, like you mentioned, mission critical things. And I'm going to talk about one specifically, one session that stood out with this. But I do want us to all be aware is like with these regulatory and governmental mandates or guidance or directives, is there are products out there and standards out there that a lot of people are leaning on to make sure they are protected and ready for an incident, and how they respond, how they react if it happened. And I think last time this was also talked about is 62443. I think you all had Eric Cosman on,
Yes. Yep.
on an episode as well. So I would advise anybody that isn't familiar with 62443, go back, look for that episode to really dive into the meat of what that is. But ISA developed the ISA 62443 standard that has different layers to it, that you kind of can pick it which layer you need to do based on where you stand in this process. But essentially is, because ISA has this as the foundation, this is what a lot of regulators are looking at to be like, you need to make sure you're doing this. You need to make sure you're being as compliant as you can be with 62443. So that's why ISA continues to host this event and talk about it, because we can see from a regulatory, perspective that it is coming, and it has been coming for a while now, but I think it's now being more enforced than ever before in certain regions. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think, and I may get this wrong, but from previous coverage of NIS and NIS2, it's from memory, just going by memory, NIS was really about core providers. So those
Yes.
people who, if they got hacked, could really affect society in a big way. And with NIS2, right, it broadens that. So some industries that you may think, well, if that plant goes down, it's really not going to, well, it could affect your community, your city in a big way. You just may not have been aware of that previously. And so, in America, I think you're absolutely right. Not that we're going to get those same regulations, probably not word for word, but a lot of OEMs here ship there, right? A
Yep.
lot of integrators work on machines that get shipped there. But beyond that, understanding what the threats they're trying to protect from, the 62443 layer, the different layers and standards, so you understand when you see a product, right, like a remote access product, and it has all these different numbers on it, you understand what are they protecting? What kind of security was baked into this product? Like this product has this number on it. That means they went through all kinds of testing and to make sure that their processes and the product itself and the supply chain and all that. So I think it's very helpful. Not that we're going to necessarily have to meet NIST or NIST 2. We may have similar regulations, but the fact that you're staying up to date with what's going on in the world as far as cybersecurity is concerned, and we've had so many vendors on talking about zones and conduits and
Yep.
just all kinds of different things, secure remote access, VPNs, and all of this plays a role in there's just so many great products out there. But that's my pitch for why staying abreast of these is important. In worst case scenario, hey, everybody, just wanted to break in here and pay some bills. Did you know that the Automation School is a Factory IO reseller? That's right. Not only that, I have courses on using Factory IO with Control Logics and Compact Logics, with the Micro Logics and Slick 500, and with the Micro 800. Now, Factory IO is a 3D factory simulator that allows you to really practice your programming skills not on an actual machine, but on a 3D simulation of a machine. And I'll tell you what, some of these are really challenging, right? The early editions are not, the early levels aren't really that hard. But as you get into lesson 3, 4, 5, 6, and more, they start getting much harder. And a lot of times we utilize like a state machine to solve them. Because like if we have merging two different conveyors, or if we're checking for the height of packages and things like that, or we're filling a tank, whatever we're doing, a lot of times you want to take a very sequential approach to those type of applications, whereas other applications, you take more of a batch approach. But in any case, if you don't know anything about Factory IO, go check out lesson 102 in any of my PLC courses, and I put a little demo in there along with the free utility I give away with my courses, as well as for the Compact and Control Logics. There's another package we sell called PLC Logics that is similar to Factory IO, but it doesn't require a PLC. It doesn't require that you have your own license of Studio 5000. It's all self-contained training software. So check those out over at theautomationschool.com. And with that, let's jump right back into this week's episode. Don't connect the plant floor to the internet. I know you want to be able to VPN in and check on your PLCs, but just make sure that connection is ultra secure. If you're not sure if it's secure, unplug it and do the research, because we've heard about the pipeline where there was a cyber attack, and there was ransomware, and we've heard about hospitals, and just you can pretty much think any place in our society there's been a ransomware attack. And so we just got to be cognizant. We heard in major news talking about don't even charge your phone at the airport, because
Right.
I don't know how they get in, but culprits have been going in and hacking the physical hardware so they can steal your information when you're using the US. So we all have to help each other stay up to date on this. We got to share these stories. That's what people do best, is share stories about things that are important that we need to know about. And that's kind of my pitch for Stan. Let me turn it back to you.
Well, no, and you bring up it honestly makes me think about a session that happened about Wi-Fi. It was talking about Wi-Fi security, and I know that I'm just as guilty of this, where we'll just sign on to what we believe is the local safe Wi-Fi, whether it's the airport
Yep.
or the use case that he gave even here, like how many of us signed into the hotel's Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Right. And he talked about how, and he kept saying, hypothetically, to make sure, because he knew it was against the law, but hypothetically, I could spoof it right now, right? Is essentially, and he went through how he could do it, right? How he could use a device hypothetically in his laptop to essentially make the Wi-Fi go off a second, create a new Wi-Fi with a very similar name that makes you believe that that's now the new connection that you have to, say that you're joining, and, oh, there it is. My current hotel Wi-Fi went off. There's the other name that looks very similar.
Yeah.
And joining and not realizing you're joining that unsecure network. They can get in different ways now. So you're very right. As I tell people, is really that threat intelligence track at OT Cyber made me, in a good way, again, expand my knowledge for what is possible out there, but also like what I should be thinking about, taking into consideration in my day-to-day home, personal, career and life and what I'm doing, but also what am I doing in the job that I should be second guessing or making sure I've thought through. Are there any loopholes or gaps that someone could get in or is already in, right?
Well, that's the thing, because most people are bringing the devices to work. So if you get hacked at the airport or get hacked at the hotel, that's a vector into your company. And a lot of companies, that's where the intrusion comes, from a personal device. I mean, today, it used to be people were a little, don't bring your devices. And today, everybody brings their phone with them everywhere.
Yep.
And so that is a vector into the plant.
Yep.
And that's another reason why maybe your PLC and HMI and SCADA system and VFDs and everything that you have in your network should only talk to a list of approved IP addresses and approved, maybe there should be some digital signatures there. I'm not saying for certain networks, but for other networks that are more wide open, like maybe your plant floor Wi-Fi, maybe it should be locked down a little bit more. Maybe it shouldn't be a great place to stream YouTube. But in any case, let me turn it back to you.
Well, and you, her name was Dr. Marina Krotofil, and I'm going to say wrong. She actually shared a case study. Now, I won't give all the details of the case study, but essentially it talked through how even at like state-sponsored cyber operations. So when we're talking, we're talking maybe like everybody thinks like hackers are like, the people that just have too much time. They want to do ransomware, get money. They want to get through. Is like, you think about, especially with all the things happening in the world today, is countries against countries or states against states, essentially, that want to get in and disrupt the economy or disrupt and show their power, can do so through cyber attacks. And she actually talked through how attackers, especially at a state level, that get recruited by a state, maybe like a Russia, at first, like essentially she went through different scenarios where is if a government official or government wanted to get in and learn the vulnerabilities and all that for another entity or another country, is they know how to do that, right? They know how to essentially make it to where they're testing their limits, right? How long does it take them to get caught? How long does it take them to make you notice that they're in your system? What do you do about it? Like essentially, she gave examples in this case study where everything certain state-sponsored cyber operations do is strategic, right? They're testing their limits, they're testing their capabilities, they're testing and training up folks for when they actually want to do something. And I think you mentioned this in other podcasts too that I listened to, is like, we got to be cautious that people could be lurking. They could be they could be just not making themselves known in our critical infrastructure. And again, she spun it in such a way that I'm not here to scare anybody on this podcast, but essentially just being aware that people are very smart and we need to be smart and ahead of that as well. And that's what I think this conference allows us to do, is it shares best practices, it shares that knowledge, it builds those connections. So now, like you kind of mentioned, there's so much equipment that you can buy and vendors selling different things that have different security settings. Like all those sponsors make great products, and understanding what they can do, what they can't do, helps us be able to protect ourselves, get ahead of these risks, get ahead of these potentials, and not be afraid, right? It's kind of like you put a lock on your door to make sure you're not just welcoming anybody in. Not that you're going to plan for someone just to walk in your house that's not welcome, right? Is we want to make sure we're doing what we can. And I think that's what this conference really allowed, is to know the risk out there, to be aware of the situations, the cyber attacks that have happened in recent history, but also like, what can I do as an end user, as a consultant, as an integrator, as a product, manufacturer? What can I do to make a difference to help safeguard our OT systems and make a difference and protect them.
I was one of the people that are like, well, why would they hack us? And it's like, take a step back. First of all, these people who are working for their governments, whether it's the U.S., whether it's the EU, any country in the world, you name it,
Right.
they'll think that they're doing a patriotic thing, working for their country, and every country, almost virtually every country in the world, virtually every one of them have been hacked by almost every other one of them.
Yes.
And we don't know who hacked first, right? This is the eye for the eye thing. Like, it's been going on for so long. Did the French start it? Did the Americans start it? Did the Russians start it? No. Every country in the world's been hacking every other country. There's no tracing back to who started this roller coaster of hacking, but everybody's perceived like the other people are hacking me, so I have to hack back. So you just have to be cognizant of that and understand that it may not be you. It may not be your company. It may not even be what you make that's the target. You may just be the punch back for the punch they received last month, and you're just the only target they can hit. And so we let's stop all the punching. Right. Let's secure our facilities so we frustrate all of these, including our own, all these people who are trying to illegally hack into different companies and cause problems like the ransomware. And and it's real. And it came years ago. It came to me. I put a SCADA server as a demo for my customers. I put it on the internet. I was just like, hey, boss, give me a cable modem. I'm going to put my server on. I'm going to demo, web-based SCADA to all my great customers in the area. And the thing was hacked within a day. I mean, and I'm going back 20 years now. This is 20 years. It was hacked in a day. And every week I would spend a couple hours trying to make it hack proof. This was before I even, firewalls were even like a consideration for a small business, right? And so, yes, the people are being hacked all the time. Yep. And we have to be vigilant against those hacks. And we got to, people are tired of me saying this. Also, please back up your PLC, HMI, SCADA systems, and all those VFDs. Right. Back all that stuff up just in case. There's so much room on your hard drive now. You could back it all up 1,000 times and you would still have room left over. So I like.
Can you imagine how much money you would save having that backup ready to go instead of like you mentioned downtime earlier, right? Is essentially if something were to happen, right? Say ransomware whatever, right? Is you end up saying no, we're not paying it, and you lose everything. Is now if you had to rebuild all of that code and all of your systems and get everything back talking to each other I don't even want to do the math. I mean, you're losing revenue, just whatever you're producing or making with that system, but you're also now spending money to get it back to whereas if you had the backups already ready. Yes, you're still going to have downtime. You're still going to have to get everything back up, but you're saving all that developmental time to like redo it all, essentially.
And sometimes you can't. There are some machines that are so complicated and they may have had changeover. Nobody may have that file anymore. So take your own future in your own hands, back up everything, back it up more than once, and take it like Microsoft will tell you if you go to any type of server type of training or certifications, you got to have a copy of that off-site. They all cannot be on your site because if there's a fire where you store all that stuff, you don't have any backups anymore. So very interesting stuff. And I hate to preach. I know the audience is used to me saying this stuff, but it's so important. I've had multiple customers, former customers, colleagues, audience members tell me about their horror stories where they had ransomware, and it truly is devastating to the companies. Right. And it really it hurts people's paychecks because, there's no raises that year, no bonuses that year, sometimes layoffs. So,
it kills the culture. I mean, truly. And that's where I think sometimes we take for granted, kind of like you mentioned at the beginning, we put our blinders on. We just do our job. We think we're doing our job, and you don't think about all these things. And I think that's the benefit of groups like this, right? Your podcast, bringing a community together to talk about things like this, lessons learned, things that I've learned in my career, my product. Like, you're getting knowledge out there, and that's exactly what ISA is trying to do as well. It's like, why do we all have to learn by the hard way or learn by things happening when you have all these resources? That's what I think frustrates me the most sometimes is people will be like, well, I didn't know that.
Hey, everybody, I just wanted to jump in here and pay some bills and tell you about my training at the Automation School, my in-person training that I do right here in my offices in the beautiful Berkshires. So many great things to do out here in Western Massachusetts. We're about an hour away from Albany, New York. And one of the things you're going to find with my training that you're not going to find with the big vendors is, I can kind of customize it for you, right? So, if you want to do like a day of Allen Bradley PLCs and a day of Siemens PLCs, I can do that for you. Also, we teach not just using the trainer boxes, but we also teach using Factory IO so that even the most advanced students should have a full day's worth of work or 2 or 3 full days, depending on what you want to do. And you're going to see over the coming weeks, I'm adding even more hardware to the training room. I'm creating all of these 1x1 demo boards that I'll be showing you guys on the lunchtime show that I'm doing, where I'm bringing in things like Flex IO, Point IO, 1769 distributed IO, 5069 distributed IO. All these things that, if you go to some other place where they just bought, 8 PLCs and 8 PCs and say, here's a manual, you're not going to get the same experience. So in any case, if you have any needs for in-person training, maybe you don't want to send your folks off to the factory at $5,000 a pop and have them gone for a week, get in touch with me, and you can see all these details about what I'm doing over at theautomationschool.com/live. That is where I have not only information about my in-person training, I have pictures of the training room, I got pictures of the building. I also have all the local hotels. Within 3 miles, we have all of the big hotels, as well as all of the kind of fun stuff you can do in the Berkshires when you come out here, like visit the Norman Rockwell Museum, climb Mount Greylock, and there's so many other things to do as well out here. And a lot of historical places too, like Susan B. Anthony's home, or Herman Melville's home, and so on. So with that, I just wanted to tell you about my in-person training that I'm offering here in my office. And now let's jump right back into this week's show.
And I'm like, but you gotta go find that out, right? You gotta ingrain yourself in a community that knows more than you do and admit you're not the smartest person in the room, right? And learn from the group, right? Learn from the greater good that is really trying to help make the world a better place. I know it's a tagline, but essentially that's true, right? Like you're trying to get the automation community more knowledge, more information, and that's what ISA is trying to do. And I think it's nice to know that you don't have to do it alone, in the sense of whether you're starting out in automation and you have no clue what you just signed up for, or you're in it, you're now charged with making sure the OT system's safe, is knowing that there's conferences out there that specialize in OT cybersecurity, as well as like standards that tell you how to make sure that you're protecting your OT cyber, security assets and all that stuff, but also training courses. So I think Scott mentioned this last year, but we did the same thing this year where we hosted 2 training courses with this conference that you could sign up for. One of them even sold out, and that was using the ISA 62443 standard, like how to use it to secure your control systems. Literally a 2-day course, sold out. Full house, packed room. Marco Aola. I can't ever say his last name. Sorry, Marco, if you're listening. He is great if you've never met him, but he has tons of knowledge. He trained that or taught that course during this conference in Belgium. So if you're not sure where to start and you're just like, I just need to wrap my head around what this standard is, maybe reading a standard is not what you love to do. Maybe you want someone to teach you what's in there and how to use it. That's the place to start, as well as Steve Mustard taught assessing the cyber security of new and existing systems. So industrial automation control systems. So Steve Mustard's also been on an episode. He taught a class as well at Brussels. And so I just wanted to encourage everyone that is listening, is you don't have to be an automation professional alone. You don't have to figure out how to just make sure you're safe and secure alone. Get involved in communities like this podcast, like ISA. Find those people that have walked it, have learned from mistakes, have done things, because there's resources out there that you can find and get involved in, whether that's discussion boards, conferences, standards, training, all of the above, podcasts. I think that's where people are like, why are you involved in ISA? I'm like, why wouldn't I be? It's so much knowledge. So take it with what I say is I just ask people to get involved. That's what I'm saying in any automation community.
Yeah, and if you're an engineering manager out there, consider, take the first step. Get
Right.
yourself involved with your local chapter, right? And maybe it is an ISA, right?
Right.
If you don't have an ISA local, there's probably another similar
Yes.
organization. Um, and get involved. And if you find it valuable, right, that whatever it is, an hour a week, an hour a month, then encourage the people who work for you to also get involved. It's yes, some of them may find may network a little bit and find a new job, but then again, you may find people to fill positions you have
Yes.
open. So, but it did just, there's this industrial automation
Mhm.
industry is so tiny, right? Compared
Small
to like
world.
health and fitness, right? Or all
Yes.
those type of things that we're at a disadvantage as far as just being able to have everybody on the corner. There's a gym on every corner, or there's
Yes.
a maker shop on every corner. Well, with industrial automation, a lot of times we can't visit each other's facilities just because of intellectual property.
Right.
So,
Right.
so consider that. And there's some great places online, plcs.net,
Mhm.
mrplc.com, and other forums online. We get the ISA and other organizations. So yeah, I definitely confirm that too. We want to encourage people to get involved. And I know a lot of folks are like me. You got family, you got kids, grandkids. You're just busy all the time. But if you're able to, and I live in the boonies, but if you're able to, get involved. So
No,
I definitely
exactly.
encourage that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I have two boys of my own, 2 and 6. And the joke around ISA is that they're the youngest members because they are going to be I literally have bought merch with ISA on it for them because it's just one of those
Awesome.
things that it does take a village to be part of something like this and
Mhm.
try to really make a difference. So I do want to go back a step. You mentioned this too, and I think it's so valuable. I joined ISA because my manager found the value and said, you should join ISA because it will skyrocket your career. You'll learn from other professionals, you'll network, you'll get up to speed faster in this type of industry with if you didn't, right? And I can tell you as working for the same company now for 13 years that that hasn't been a truer statement. Is it truly enabled me to one, get involved in this industry, grow from an INC engineer, putting in big EPC projects, engineer procurement construction projects, midstream refineries, to now managing automation projects for my clients. And I truly credit getting involved in the automation community because again, it's a small world. I've literally met people across the United States that are like, I feel like I've gotten an email from you. Like, are you part of ISA? Like, it's truly like you don't realize how that like comes full circle. You're like, yes, I am. And like, how are you involved? So all to say, I totally agree. And I do want to say if you go to events, is you might be the first to hear something that's in the works or that's starting. So I did want to mention in here because I think it's a really cool initiative that's rolling out is our group ISA Secure, which again focuses on 62443, is they're rolling out the Industrial Automation Control System Security Assurance Program this fall. So there was a session on it at the conference to announce it, and there's a whole flyer on it. You can find it at isasecure.org. What it's doing is it's kind of coming full circle, right? Is ISA developed a standard, they then made training for the standard. They then, essentially said, okay, what else can we do? Okay, let's do ISA secure and really like certify devices and things that fall as ISA secure. They're doing what they should be doing. And now it's saying, now let's offer a site assessment program to where we will validate or essentially not prove, but essentially they're going to say, yes, you are following what you can do for 62443. And so it's going to roll out this fall. So more details to come. Like I said, there's a 2-page flyer on it. It goes through different stakeholder benefits depending on, are you an asset owner? Are you an insurance underwriter? Are you, an end, I said end user, but you know what I mean? It essentially is, it kind of lays out that they're going to come in and say, yes, you are being compliant with 62443. as the person that, wrote 62443 is essentially kind of validating that through this new, it's called ACSSA. We love acronyms in ISA, and control systems love acronyms. So we had to fit the part there. So all to say, I think it's good to join events because they're the first ones to know. I learned that at the conference. So it's like you're always finding out what's coming ahead that you can be on the lookout for, what could help you, instead of going down a rabbit hole that you didn't even realize this was coming into play. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Was there anything else you wanted to share with us about the event? I know we covered a lot of ground already,
yeah.
but were there other things that you wanted to talk about?
The only thing I wanted to say was, I know I mentioned this before, but I would say get involved at a conference that maybe is overseas if you ever get the opportunity. Next year, it's going to be in Prague, Czech Republic, also in the month of June. You'll find all the details coming out on our website, OTCS for OT Cybersecurity Summit, .isa.org. And I want to just reiterate that you really do build that diverse connections. You build confidence if you're doing it the right way. You get the knowledge if you essentially, needed more knowledge on what to do to secure your OT assets. So I just think going to a conference like this really builds that community, that network, and that confidence. And so I encourage you all to join, but essentially I think you should look at our pictures on our website. It makes it look like you missed out. I will say it was a lot of fun. I was so glad to join. But I do thank you, Shawn, for letting me be here today.
No, and it's great to hear what ISA is doing. You guys do so much, and I know this security summit, OT Security Summit, or Cyber Summit, is a big part and touches on a very important aspect of what the people in the audience do on a regular basis. And we love getting updates from you guys. Maybe we can get you back in a few months to talk about maybe something else you guys are working on. But in any case,
We would love that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on today and bringing us up to speed on the summit.
Well, thank you, Shawn. I really appreciate you and your community.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Ashley for coming on the show and talking OT cybersecurity with us. It sounds like a great opportunity to go to this event especially if your company has offices in Europe. It's not something that I think I could do as a self-employed person here in the U.S., but definitely any of you folks out there who are working with your European counterparts, maybe going to SPS over there. This may be a trip you may want to consider. And of course, please check out the ISA. They're a great organization, and we love having them on the show. I also want to thank our sponsor, theautomationschool.com. If you know anybody looking for PLC, HMI, or SCADA training, whether it be in person right here in this office or it be online, please contact me directly at theautomationschool.com. You'll see all my contact links up at the top of the site. And with that, I want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.